The criminality that might be more associated with the left is that associated with low conscientiousness, and that's more like parasitical lifestyle. If you look at Robert Hare's work on psychopathy, it breaks into two factors that are roughly, you can map them out roughly on the big five trait space. And so the predator types, they're low in agreeableness, and they're people who basically view you as a basket of exploitable resources. And I'm not complaining about low agreeableness. In measured doses, it's an extraordinarily useful trait because it makes people tough and blunt and willing to hurt other people's feelings when they tell the truth.
An airplane turns because it has a fin that produces resistance, and society needs those who are going to resist its edicts.
That's exactly right. And managers, for example, who are low in agreeableness do better than managers who are high in agreeableness because they don't get pushed around. Okay, but if agreeableness gets low enough, you get the predator types. And those are tough guys. They don't have any real empathy or compassion, and they'll take what they want, especially if they don't see another alternative. And then on the low conscientious front, so in the psychopathy domain, there's the predatory type and there's the parasite type. And the parasite types are the ones that are low in conscientiousness, and they won't work. They don't do anything. They're low in industriousness, and so other people ended up supporting them. And the true psychopath is a predatory parasite, right? A very rough type of person. They're out for themselves and they will not do anything that's productive. So the social justice types, to the degree that they tend towards criminality, it's because of the low conscientiousness and not because of, they're not disagreeable. In fact, quite the contrary. Too agreeable.
Well, unless you disagree with them, right? I mean, we've seen this in some of the...
That's because, I know, I understand, that's exactly it. If you disagree with a mother about her children, it's her empathy that makes her your enemy.
Right.
So it's a hard thing to get your head around because, almost everybody, and obviously even as we have this discussion, the idea is that, well, if you were empathic, you wouldn't hurt someone. It's like, no, wrong. If you're empathic, you protect the people that you're empathic towards. If that means that you have to step on someone's head, I mean, here's an example. Let me give you an example. This is a symbolic example from Christianity. So one of the most common and famous representations of Mary has Mary holding Christ up, often to her left, as an infant, and stepping on a snake or a reptile. And that has a whole variety of meanings, but one of them stems from what God tells Eve when he kicks Adam and Eve out of paradise. He says that the descendants of Mary will bruise the head of the snake, roughly speaking. Okay, so that's one reference point for that symbol. But the other one, you can just look, all you have to do is think biologically and look at that damn image for 1 second, and you know what it means. It means that women have been protecting children from predatory reptiles for like 60 million years. Of course, we weren't people back then. I mean, I know my evolutionary timeline, but the point is that she's not, her empathy towards her infant makes her a deadly force towards the predator. And so, and that's the right, I believe that's the right way to conceptualize this, is someone is going to be very nice to you who's agreeable unless they think that you're a predator, and then boy, you better look out because they're a mother grizzly bear and you're the stupid hunter that's crossed between her and her cubs.
And it's, to me, incredible how people with particular political or social agendas have managed to harness female nature this way to make them almost a domesticated livestock of attacking their enemies. And I think this has just been a brutalization of what is wonderful and glorious in human nature, to turn it to the service of political agendas by filling women with, particularly more educated women, with very I'm trying to think of the right phrase here, Manichaean or light and dark depictions of the world, this basket of deplorables that Hillary Clinton was talking about, that there's our side and then there's the completely demonized other. And this, of course, is denied by Freud, denied by Jung, denied by people with self-knowledge, that you can't just take your own darker nature and justly project it on entire categories of people and attack them and think you're doing anything other than manifesting the very wrong you're claiming to oppose.
Yes. It turns out when it comes to political debates, typically the debate isn't over whether or not to empathize. It's over who to empathize with. Do you empathize with black teenagers who are shot by cops? Or do you empathize with cops who have a difficult and dangerous job? Do you empathize with the parents of a toddler who got shot by a gun due to lax gun laws? Or do you empathize with somebody who is raped because she is not permitted, has no right to own a gun to defend herself? Do you empathize with the woman or the fetus? Do you empathize with the beneficiary of affirmative action who otherwise wouldn't get into a college, or with the white kid who was going to get in because his grades are great, but isn't going to get in because he's white, and so on and so forth. For every sort of argument where liberals and conservatives face off against, each side points to somebody to empathize with and argues that way. And I think this is a horrible way to have political discussions. Any policy of any scope, from affirmative action to gun laws to abortion laws, is going to have some winners and losers. There will inevitably be people who suffer upon any application of law. And so pointing out, oh, let me tell you the story of somebody who suffered. Somebody who suffered because of Obamacare. Somebody who suffered because we're getting rid of Obamacare, is a stupid argument. It's an appeal to the passions. Well, what you really want to know is statistics. You want to know, well, how many people are suffering? How many people are better off this way? And how many people are worse off that way? Now, I said for many political debates, it's always a question of who you empathize with, but not for all of them. There are some political positions, some moral and social positions, where empathy just favors one side of the issue. But I think it tends to favor the wrong side. So one of these issues is climate change. A lot of people are concerned about climate change because they believe, I think with a lot of evidence, that unchecked it will lead to suffering of millions, perhaps billions of people. But there's nobody to empathize with. There's no single person you could point to and say, see that crying child? She's crying because of climate change. It doesn't work that way. The argument is statistical. On the other hand, if you were to try to respond to climate change by raising gasoline taxes or doing some sort of other social intervention, then there will be crying children. There'll be people who suffer. So empathy argues for inaction, where I think the right policy would involve some sort of action. A second example is free speech, where empathy, I think, is always on the side of the censor. Because if I say something that offends somebody, on the right, on the left, if I mock some beloved figure, if I use some terms that some group doesn't like, people will suffer. And if you're empathic with their suffering, that'll be a good argument for shutting me up. On the other hand, if you have rigorous laws preventing people from speech, hate speech laws, anti-free speech laws, it's hard to see the empathic concern here. The arguments in favor of free speech don't tend to be empathic arguments. They tend to be arguments based on moral principles, like people should have a right to communicate themselves, long-term utilitarian benefits, like society is better off if everybody has a voice, selfish benefits of the sort, if I let you say your stuff that I don't like, you'll let me say my stuff that you don't like. But they aren't empathic arguments. And here again, empathy favors one side of the story, which is to shut people up, to censor people. And here again, I think it favors the wrong side of the story.
We're now going to return to the conversation between Jordan Peterson and Stephan Molyneux. The topic at this point in the conversation was about people who are really pushing for communist or strong socialist societies. The people who claim that this system of government could work if we were just all more empathetic are wrong, as it doesn't account for the tyrants or usurpers who would literally kill them to take over that power.
Half the archetype is missing for the left ideology. It's like, well, the state is good. It's like, yeah, sure, it is, but it's also tyrannical. And so then the lefties say, yeah, but if I was in charge of it, it wouldn't be tyrannical. The proper response to that is, no, if the person in charge thinks that they wouldn't be a tyrant, then for sure they're going to be a tyrant. So, and that's part of this part of the externalization of responsibility for evil. It's like, well, you hear someone say, well, real communism was never tried. And what they mean by that is, well, with my specialized knowledge of Marx and my impeccable moral character, if I would have been in this position, utopia would have been generated in a decade. And it's so naive, because let's assume that they are a good person and that they were put in power. All that would have meant was that one of Stalin's psychopaths would have slit their throat in the middle of the night.
I don't think we can reasonably risk another 100 million deaths to try this experiment one more time. I think that experiment has been tried so many times and in so many different cultures and countries and has resulted in the same human disassembly machine dictatorship every single time. We simply don't have any. We don't, unless people are going to willing to spend their own damn lives or the lives of their own children, we don't have enough human beings, and never will, to try that experiment even one more time, even tentatively.
That's the thing. All we have is this evidence from, as you said, from multiple cultures and multiple times, that as soon as you implement this, the same thing happens, and it's always really unimaginably awful. Not just awful, but awful beyond your capacity to understand. That's pretty awful. So yeah, I mean, you can't shake the suspicion that someone who says that the dark part of someone who says we should try it again is rubbing their hands at the thought of another 10 million corpses.
If you like the video, smash that like button. If you don't like it, leave a comment explaining why. If you have nothing to add,
ZeroFox given.